A helicopter crew was flying low over the jungles of Maui. They weren't looking for a survivor. They were looking for a body. 17 days, that's how long she'd been missing. No phone, no shoes, no food, a broken leg. Alone in one of the densest forests in Hawaii. Then the pilot saw something, a tiny movement on a narrow ledge between two waterfalls, a thin, pale arm waving. She was alive. Her name is Amanda Eller. And what happened to her over those 17 days, especially what happened on day 14, is one of the most intense survival stories ever recorded. But to understand how she ended upon that ledge, barely alive, waving at a helicopter, we need to go back to the morning it all started, when she made one small decision that nearly cost her everything. May 8th, 2019. Amanda Eller, 35 years old, a local on Maui, a yoga instructor, a physical therapist. She knew these trails. She ran them often. That morning, she drove up to Makawao Forest Reserve for a quick 3-meal run. Back home by lunch. Back to work by afternoon. That was the plan. At the trailhead, she made 3 small choices. She left her phone in the car, left her wallet in the glove box, left her water bottle on the seat. She wanted to disconnect. Clear her head and no notification. No distraction. Just her and the trail. In that moment, those choices felt like freedom. Later, they would feel like a death sentence. She started jogging. Red dirt under her shoes. Tall eucalyptus overhead. Birds. Wind. Silence. After about 30 minutes, she stopped on a fallen log, closed her eyes, and meditated. When she opened them and stood up to head back, she had one tiny decision to make. Turn around, follow the same trail back to the card, or take a different path she believed would loop around and bring her back. She chose a new path. She trusted her instinct. One small turn. That's all it was. And that single decision was about to turn her next 17 days into a fight to stay alive. What she was about to find out was how fast the jungle can turn against you. Makawao Forest Reserve is not a city park. It's a maze. Official trails cross with pig tracks and deer paths. Routes split, twist, and then just disappear into ferns. Amanda jogged on, relaxed, confident. The trail will loop back. It always does. But the path started getting thinner, less walked on, overgrown. And then it simply ended. Thick undergrowth. No trail. No markers. Nothing. She had 2 options. Stop. Turn around. Carefully backtrack. Or push forward, hoping to hit another trail or road. She pushed forward. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. She stopped and looked around. Nothing looked familiar. And no signs. No people. No sound of cars. Just trees in every direction. The sun was dropping. Shadows stretched across the forest floor. And then it hit her. She was lost. Night fell fast. Suddenly, Amanda had nothing no phone. No flashlight. No jacket. No water. No shelter. Most people think Hawaii means warmth, but upcountry Maui, in a wet forest at 3,000 feet, gets genuinely cold at night. Cold enough to cut through a thin tank top and yoga pants like they weren't even there. She tried to listen for cars. Nothing. Tried to find her way back. Impossible in the dark. She found a flat patch of ground, lay down, and tried to sleep. It wasn't sleep. The jungle at night is loud. Insects screaming. Branches cracking. Something heavy moving through the brush nearby. She lay there shivering, arms wrapped around herself, counting the hours until sunrise. What she didn't know was this. That same evening back in town, her boyfriend and friends were already panicking. She hadn't shown up for work. She wasn't answering her phone. By nightfall, police were at the trailhead. Her car was still parked there. Inside, her phone, her wallet, her water bottle, all untouched. Search teams went in with flashlights, calling her name into the dark. Amanda was out there. Maybe not even that far away, but the jungle swallowed their voices before the sound ever reached her. And the next few days were going to strip away everything she had left. By morning, light returned. Clarity didn't. Amanda looked around, and every direction looked identical. Trees, ferns, ravines, red dirt. No clear ridge to climb. No obvious downhill to follow. She made the choice many lost hikers instinctively make. Go downhill. Find water. Follow it. Streams lead to rivers. Rivers lead to people. That's the theory. But in a Hawaiian jungle, going downhill doesn't mean a gentle slope. It means steep, slippery mud. Roots hidden under leaves that grab your ankles. Drops you can't see until you're already falling. On one of these descents, She stepped toward what looked like a small drop-off. Ferns covered the edge. She couldn't see the bottom. She took one more step, and the ground disappeared. She fell 20 feet, sliding, tumbling, slamming into rock. When she finally stopped, pain exploded through her body. In that single fall, she fractured her tibia, tore the meniscus in her knee, sprained her ankle, covered her body in deep bruises and cuts. She lay on the rocks, gasping, blood running down her shin, the sound of water somewhere below, pain so sharp it blurred her vision. Now she wasn't just lost, she was lost and seriously injured. Every attempt to put weight on her leg sent fire from her ankle to her hip, but lying there on those rocks meant dying there. So she moved, slowly, painfully, and then the jungle took something else. Not long after the fall, she was crawling through a narrow stream bed when a flash flood hit, without warning. Brown water surged around her legs. She grabbed at rocks, tried to hold on. The current ripped her running shoes off her feet and carried them away. Gone. Just like that. From this point on, remember what she's dealing with. A fractured leg, a torn knee, and now completely barefoot, on lava rock, on roots, on mud. All of this, and it was only around day 3. She still had 14 more days ahead of her, and the people searching for her above were about to face a devastating decision. While Amanda dragged herself barefoot through the jungle below, the search above her was massive. Maui police, firefighters, search and rescue teams, hundreds of volunteers, friends, strangers. They combed the official trails, pushed into the wild side paths, called her name over and over. Helicopters flew grid patterns overhead, pilots scanning mile after mile of green canopy. But Makawao is one of the hardest places to search. The canopy is so thick that from the air, a person lying under leaves is almost invisible. On the ground, you can walk within 50 meters of someone and never see them, never hear the move or the rush of water and wind. After about 3 days with no trace found, the official search began to scale back. The statistics were brutal. A missing hiker, not found within 72 hours in this terrain, has very low odds of being found alive. But Amanda's family and friends looked at those odds and said no. They launched a Facebook group, started a GoFundMe, raised tens of thousands of dollars. They hired private helicopters, brought in experienced locals, ex-military trackers, off-duty firefighters, organized volunteer teams that swept new areas every day. They flat out refused to stop looking. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Amanda could sometimes hear helicopters, the distant thrum of rotors somewhere above the canopy. Once or twice, she thought she heard voices, thought she heard her own name. She screamed back, screamed until her throat burned and her voice cracked. Nobody answered. The jungle bent the sound, scattered it, swallowed it. To the people searching above, it was as if she had simply vanished. To Amanda below, it felt like the world had forgotten she existed. And while the searchers above were running out of leads, Amanda was running out of something more basic: food. What came next would test how much a human body can actually survive. Day 7. No food for a week. Broken leg. Barefoot. Alone. By now, hunger wasn't just a feeling. IT was a constant, grinding pain that never stopped. Amanda had no food supplied and no way to make fire. No tools. Just a body already exhausted, already injured, burning through its last reserves. The human body can technically survive weeks without food, but each day without it, you get weaker, slower, foggier. Your hands shake. Your thoughts blur. Simple decisions feel overwhelming. She drank from streams, scooping water with her hands. The water wasn't clean. She knew that, but dehydration would kill her in days. Parasites would take weeks. It was a calculation. She chose the slower risk. She ate whatever the forest offered that she could recognize. Wild guavas, tiny wild strawberries, leaves and berries she believed were safe. Sometimes insects forced down for any scrap of protein. It wasn't enough. Not even close. Just enough to keep her engine running on fumes. Just enough to stop her body from shutting down completely. Her face thinned. Her muscles wasted. Her menstrual cycle stopped. A clear signal of extreme stress and starvation. And then there were the nights. Day 10. Still no rescue. Body failing. Hope fading. Every night was its own battle. Cold air settled into the ravines after sunset. Dew soaked her thin clothes. Sudden rain showers hit, without warning, drenching her and draining her body heat. With no jacket, no blanket, no fire, she had to find whatever shelter the jungle offered. Overhanging rock ledges, hollows formed by tree roots. Some nights, She crawled into wild boar dens, holes pigs had scraped under roots for sleeping. The dirt smelled like wet animal. Insects crawled over her skin, but it was warmer than lying in the open at S.O. she stayed. Mosquitoes and ants covered her arms and legs. Her skin became a map of bites, scratches, and small cuts, all of them threatening infection in the constant damp. She rinsed them in streams when she could. Basic survival hygiene. Instinct more than training. Every morning she woke up weaker than the day before, more exhausted, more drained. Her body was breaking down. But the body wasn't the biggest problem anymore. The real battle had moved somewhere deeper, into her mind. Amanda had spent years practicing yoga and meditation, breath work, stillness, watching her own thoughts. In the jungle, those tools became survival equipment. She controlled her breathing to manage panic. She talked to herself out loud, just to hear a human voice, just to push back against the silence. She tried to observe her fear from a distance, instead of letting it swallow her whole. She later said she sometimes felt guided by an internal voice. Stay here, don't move yet, go that way. Call it intuition, spirituality, survival instinct, whatever you want. Something inside her was still working, still pointing her forward when everything else said stop. But even with all of that, the loneliness was crushing. The days had blurred together. She hadn't seen another human being in over a week. She hadn't heard a voice that wasn't her own. And the thoughts kept coming. The search is probably over. Nobody knows where I am. Maybe they'll find my bones next year. Maybe never. By day 10, her hope was almost gone. By day 13, she was running on willpower alone. And by day 14, even that was about to run out. What happened next was the darkest moment of the entire ordeal. And the most important, day 14, 2 full weeks lost. Amanda found herself trapped at the bottom of a deep ravine. Walls rising nearly vertical on both sides to a narrow stream at the bottom. She couldn't climb out. Her broken leg wouldn't hold her weight on the steep rock. Her arms were too weak to pull herself up. She was stuck. She lay down on a flat rock ledge and looked up. A thin strip of sky between the walls of green, that's all she could see. And for the first time, she wasn't thinking about how to get out. She was thinking about whether she even wanted to. 2 weeks of cold, hunger, pain point, 2 weeks of screaming with no answer point, 2 weeks of dragging a broken body over rocks and roots and mud, and nothing had changed. Nobody had come. She stared at that strip of sky, and a thought settled over her like a weight. Maybe this is where my story ends. Maybe this is where they find me. Or don't. She wasn't thinking about doing anything dramatic. She was thinking about doing nothing. Just closing her eyes, letting her body go still, letting the jungle finish what had started. Her hands were shaking. Not from cold this time, from exhaustion so deep it felt like surrender. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 14 days, she wasn't scared anymore. She was just tired. Then, in that emptied-out silence, lie on the rocks at the bottom of a ravine, with no one watching and no one coming, something shifted. She didn't describe it as a dramatic moment, more like a quiet one, a small, stubborn voice somewhere inside her that said one thing. Not yet. She opened her eyes. She looked up at that thin strip of sky, and she realized she still had a choice. If she was going to die in this jungle, she could die lying on this rock, or she could die trying to move toward life. And if she had even one more day of strength left, even a few hours, she would use every second of it. She made herself a promise. If I wake up tomorrow, I move, and no matter how much it hurts, I move. That night, nothing changed on the outside. She was still cold, still starving, still alone, still lying at the bottom of a ravine with a broken leg. But something had changed on the inside. Her decision. And when the sun came up the next morning, she kept her promise. Day 15. Amanda forced herself to sit up, then to stand. Her fractured leg screamed. Her bare feet, torn and blistered, burned on the rock. Her body fell hollow, but she stood. She picked a new stream and started following it downstream, toward lower ground, toward wider valleys, toward anything that might lead to people. She slipped, fell, hit rock, got up, fell again, got up again. Every single step was a choice. Not this step. I'm not done. Not this step. I'm not done. Day 16. She kept moving, slower, weaker, but moving. The stream led through ravines and over small falls. She crawled when she couldn't walk, dragged herself over rocks when she couldn't crawl. And about 7 miles from where she'd parked her car 17 days ago, she reached a narrow green ledge beside a waterfall and couldn't go any further. She stopped there and waited. Above her, she didn't know it, but the search was entering its final, desperate phase. Her family and friends had never stopped. Their private search had kept helicopters in the air and experienced trackers in the forest long after the official teams had pulled back. One of those people was Javier Canteleps, a former U.S. Army Ranger living on Maui. On May 25, 2019, day 17, Canteleps climbed into a helicopter with pilot Chris Berquist. They had a refined search grid this time, focused on exactly the kind of terrain Amanda would have followed. Steep gulches, stream beds, waterways. They flew low. They flew slow, eyes scanning the green below. For a long time, nothing, just endless canopy. Cliffs, shadows. Javier's eyes were tired. The fuel gauge was dropping. Then, over a remote ravine, he saw something that didn't match. Not a color, a movement. He leaned forward. On a tiny ledge near a waterfall, something pale was moving against the green. He grabbed his headset. I see her. She's alive. On that ledge, a thin woman in a torn tank top was waving both arms at the sky. That woman was Amanda. From the air, she barely looked real. Barefoot, clothes shredded, skin burned, scratched, bitten, peeling 0.15 pounds lighter than 17 days ago. But she was standing, and she was waving. The crew radio coordinates. Ground team scrambled. A rescue helicopter prepared for a hoist extraction. Getting to her was not simple. She was on a narrow rock ledge between two waterfalls, in a spot nearly impossible to reach on foot. When rescuers finally got to her, they found a woman covered in cuts, bruises, and insect bites, barefoot with severe damage to both feet, dehydrated, malnourished, fighting early infections in dozens of wounds, but conscious, alert, coherent, still there. They strapped her into a rescue sling. Photos from that moment show her face, sunken eyes, cracked lips, sharp cheekbones, but her eyes were open, focused, alive. As the helicopter lifted her off that ledge, she looked down the ravine at the jungle that had held her for more than 2 weeks. 17 days earlier, she jogged into these trees for a quick run. Now she was being hoisted out, hanging from a cable, watching the green fall away below her. At Maui Memorial Medical Center, doctors cataloged the damage: a fractured tibia, a torn meniscus, severe injuries to her feet and ankles from days of barefoot travel over rock, multiple infections starting in her cuts, dehydration, malnutrition. She had been days from death, maybe hours, but she had stayed alive long enough for people who refused to give up on her to finally bring her home. Amanda spent days in the hospital, surgery on her leg, for antibiotics, fluids, nutrition, slow, painful rehabilitation. When she spoke publicly afterward, she didn't romanticize what had happened. She talked about fear, about pain that made her vision go white, about loneliness so heavy it felt like a physical weight on her chest. And she talked about day 14, about lying on that rock, looking at the sky, and coming as close as she ever had to simply giving up. But she also talked about what pulled her back. The decision that even if she was going to die, she would die moving, not lying still. That one choice, she said, save her life, not strength, not luck, a decision. Her story became international news. People saw different things in it. A warning about underestimating the wilderness, even places you think you know. A testament to what the human body can endure when the mind refuses to quit. A reminder that community matters, that Amanda didn't save herself alone. She survived because friends and strangers pooled their money, their time, their helicopters, and refused to accept the statistic. That thin arm waving from the ledge and the helicopter that finally saw it were two halves of the same refusal. Don't stop. Not yet. Not today. Amanda still lives on Maui. She went back to teaching yoga and physical therapy. She carries scars on her legs and feet. She carries a different relationship with risk, with preparation, with the line between confidence and carelessness. And she carries one truth she earned the hardest way possible. You don't always choose your disasters, but as long as you're breathing, you get to choose your next step. If this story held you for the whole video, do one thing. Hit like. It tells YouTube to show Thisto more people who actually care about rail survival stories. And if you want more stories from oceans, deserts, mountains, frozen wastelands, people who spent not just days but weeks and months fighting to survive, subscribe now.